This is our unit on waves. So the first thing to know about waves is what their job is. What do they do? The job of a wave is to transfer energy from one place to another. It doesn't matter what type of energy, it will transfer. When we start talking about waves, it's useful to have some vocabulary terms to look at. So here are four that'll help us understand waves. The first is wavelength. And in order to confuse people, physicists like to use Greek letters for things. So this is the small l in the Greek alphabet, L for length, and it's called lambda. And the wavelength is simply from where a wave starts, one cycle until it starts repeating itself. So that is the wavelength. The frequency is how often the wave repeats itself. We use a small f to represent it, and it's the number of waves in 1 second. Amplitude is the height of the wave, how high it is relative to the average height of the wave. So a taller wave, a bigger wave, has a greater amplitude. And our last term is velocity, the speed that the wave actually travels at. If we use a capital V for velocity, the equation becomes velocity equals the wavelength times the frequency. And these apply to all waves, and we can use them as we look at music, we can use them as we look at astronomy, we can use them as we look at anything that has to do with waves. Now, if we take those same four terms and look at them how they apply to music, they may start making a little more sense. In terms of music, wavelength has to do with the length that is vibrating. So if you look at a trombone, as you slide a trombone out, you're changing the wavelength. On a flute, as you play a note and your finger covers a hole or the valve covers a hole, you're changing the length that is vibrating. As you hit a xylophone, there are different lengths of the parts that you're striking. Those all control the wavelength, and the wavelength gives you what particular note is being struck. The frequency in music is referred to as the pitch. A low pitch or a high pitch. A low pitch is a slow frequency. Amplitude, in terms of sound or music, is what we call volume. When you take a drum and you hit it hard, you're making the drum cover stretch down a long ways and bounce up a long ways. The wave is much higher. It has a bigger amplitude. Large is loud. In velocity, the speed of sound in air is constant. And it happens to be around 768 miles per hour, depending on temperature and humidity. That's how these relate to music.